I think it's okay.
You knock it off there, you'll break it.
Oh, it's fine. Anyway, what were you saying?
Huh?
Oh, never mind. So was that your first job as shoe shining, or was it?
Yeah. Yeah, and then Father Slattery kicked me out of school, and when I was in the 8th grade, I crawled out that window and I had to go see him the next morning when I went to school, and he told me that I couldn't go to school there anymore. So I told Mom about it. She didn't raise heck or nothing. Mom was pretty soft, easy going. So I went down and started working every day, shining shoes. And then when I got about 14, I got a job over at Heisey's, carrying hot glass in. They had a tray that they'd set the glasses in when they would blow on them, and I'd carry them to another area. And I'm not sure what I made then. I think it was maybe $14 a week. But you could buy a brand new bicycle for about $14, $15
Yeah.
back then. And then World War II broke out, and I turned 17 the next month, and I had to get Mom's signature to go into service in the Navy. So she signed the papers for me, and I went into service right after Pearl Harbor. The next month, I turned 21, or 17. And so I was out in the South Pacific over 2.5 years, going on 3 years on that aircraft carrier. And I was a gunner on it, but I was an electrician in the Navy.
What was the name of the?
The Barnes, USS Barnes. It was a small aircraft carrier. And we transported planes all over the South Pacific. And we had pilots on there in case we run into a Japanese sub or anything. And those pilots had maneuvers every so often. And then when we was ready to attack the Gilbert Islands, Tarawa, we went with the 5th and 6th Fleet, and when we took Tarawa back from the Japanese, and I was on a 20mm gun. I had been to gunnery school for a week up in the state of Washington, right on the ocean, on the coast. And every day we worked with 50 caliber machine guns and 20mm and 40mm and 5-inch guns. And anyway, part of the fleet hit Tarawa, and part of the fleet was down at Macon, another island in the Gilberts, and we had an admiral killed down there. He got killed. But up there at Tarawa, I was on that 20 millimeter gunner. There's three men to a gun, a 20 millimeter. One elevates you, moves you, swings you around. You're strapped in there, in the gun, and you're looking through that gun sight as the plane's coming over, and you shoot them. Every other shell was a tracer. They're about a little bigger than your finger there, about like that, and 500 rounds to a magazine. And you got a magazine operator that when you run out of that 500 rounds, he takes it off and puts another clip in, puts another magazine clip in. And he changes the barrel, and the barrel gets red hot, firing so many rounds. And he'd give the barrel a twist and yank it out and stick a new barrel in there. He had spare barrels and magazines right there, but his gun. And so I was firing at these Japanese planes as they was coming. They was trying to get battleships and heavy cruisers and large aircraft carriers. But they would strafe our ship too with bullets. And so I was on that gun for 4 days and 4 nights. And you can't leave the gun only to go to the bathroom, and they would bring sandwiches up for you to eat from the mess hall. But I was lucky. A lot of guys got killed.
Yeah.
A lot of friends that I knew in the service got killed and wounded. And from Tarawa, after we took the island, we had more Navy personnel killed at that time during the war than any other branches of service. There was more Navy personnel killed up to that time. And I don't know how many was killed at Tarawa or in the Gilbert Island down at Macon. But I got a 30-day leave after we got back to the States. But we would usually pull into Pearl Harbor and pick up new planes there at Pearl Harbor. And but I was lucky to spend 4 years there in the service and not get killed.
And you say once that you would, you and some of the other electricians would, didn't you say once that you and some of the other electricians would like take fruit from the officers thing by,
Yeah. Well, we had duty on the ship during the day.
Yeah.
When we was at sea, going from one, we hit all those islands down there and dropped planes off, and yeah, they didn't give us apples or oranges or fruit like that. They didn't give the personnel that. officers got it. So if they had trouble with their refrigeration room, any kind of trouble, lights out or anything like that, why, a couple of us guys would go there and fix it. Well, one guy's talking to they had a guard on it all the time.
Yeah.
And kept it locked up all the time. Well, while he's doing that, I'd slip a couple of apples in each sock and let my pants legs hang over, or oranges or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
And
What was that thing you said once about the guy putting his hands in the paint?
oh, that was an officer, our division officer. He was a young lieutenant, and I don't know how old he was. He was probably, I would say probably 26 or so. But every morning we had to assemble up on the flight deck and exercise.
Yeah.
And he would be there to talk to us about things. And they'd painted this yellow stripe about that wide, so far in from the edge of the ship, so far in, and so that the planes could see where they're going all the time when they're taking off or coming in. And anyway, this one morning he says, the officer says, they just painted this yellow strip in here, so you guys be careful, don't step in it or get in it or anything. And so he reached down and put his hand in it, and brought his hand up with paint on it. And that shows you how smart some of the officers were, see? And the guys started laughing about it. He was a good guy, but he just, I don't know, he just ignorant in a lot of ways. He'd never been around or done anything. The crew runs a ship. The crew, it's up to the crew to run everything, to fire the guns and keep the ship going. They take care, there's motors that burn up or go bad. You have to change them. And you got to do your own laundry aboard ship. You got to wash your own clothes and dry them. And
Didn't you say that when you first went in they had hammocks?
had what?
Didn't you say when you first went in that you had to sleep in hammocks?
Yeah. Yeah. Some ships had them and some didn't. Some of them had bunks, and some of them, older ships had hammocks. And in the barracks we had hammocks when we first went in boot training. We slept in hammocks. But later on they took the hammocks away and put bunks in for everybody. Improved on it some.
Yeah.
Hammocks is hard to get used to. Guys would fall out during the night. They'd be in their hammock and try to roll over and fall out of it. You'd hear them bang. hit the floor. Yeah.
You met a couple actresses you met, right?
Huh?
Said you met a couple actresses when you were in the Navy, right?
Yeah. Lucille Ball. You've heard of her.
Yeah.
Lucille Ball and Martha O'Driscoll. And Richard Adams, he was a lieutenant commander over to engineering.
Yeah.
And he went to Annapolis, I guess, graduated out of Annapolis. And he was from, I think he must have been from California. His family was wealthy. And he spent a lot of time around Hollywood and actors and people like that. But anyway, he went ashore as we was in, I think we was in San Diego to pick up planes. And he went ashore and brought Lucille Ball and Martha O'Driscoll aboard. And was taking them around and showing them the ship. And brought them down to the electric shop, and I was in there in my shorts. And they didn't pay no attention to that, but he introduced them to us, you know.
Yeah.
There was about 10 or 12 of us electricians in an electric shop there. And one of the I think he was a JG. One of our officers. He worked up in Hollywood. I don't know, on cameras or something. When he was a civilian, but he was an officer then aboard ship. Can't remember his name. But another officer we had was a
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. This is a serious problem, but one we can solve. Visit feedamerica.org to help. Together,
an ensign, I think.
together, we're feeding
No, he
America.
was I think he was a J. There's from an ensign to a chief petty officer to an ensign, there's an officer in between there. Just the lowest you can get as an officer. And he was a regular Navy. I can't think of what the hell was his name. Magruder, I think, something like that. Anyway,
One serving used to last 8 weeks without refrigeration, twice as long as Lantis, which lasts 4 weeks.
I went ashore one evening. See, the port side goes ashore one night, and the starboard side goes the next night. They alternate them like that. And I don't know whether I was on the starboard side or port or what. But anyway, I had a card for both sides. And guys do that. They have them made up, you know, when they get ashore. You can go to a printing officer and have them duplicated. port side or starboard side. So I went ashore both nights. Well, one of the electricians in the shop there, he told the division officer about me going ashore. He squealed on me.
Mm.
And so I busted him one, and we was tussling around there in the shop, and the division officer walked in, and he says, this guy, this electrician that squealed on me, he says, what was the fight about? He says, I don't know, ask him. So he said, well, he went ashore last night, and he wasn't supposed to go ashore. So the division officer says, come with me, Degler. So he took me to his stateroom, and he had his own room, aboard ship. So he poured us out a couple of drinks of whiskey, and he started laughing. He says, I don't care what that guy said. I don't pay attention. He says, you're regular Navy and I'm regular Navy. And he says, he's nothing but a feather merchant. And the division officer gave me a drink, and he had a shot. And he says, only one thing, he says, just don't let me catch you. He says, I don't care what he says. I don't pay no attention to it. But he says, you're a regular Navy. You may stay in the Navy 20 years. And
by the time I grew up, there was $30 billion a year in cargo moving through Ottawa Airport. And believe me, we tried to steal every bit of it.
and then we had a fan room right across from the electric shop. It had these big motors in there that run these big fans that went all through the ship.
Yeah.
Kept it cool in the summer. That Pacific got awful hot out there. And anyway, these fans was running all the time. So he wanted somebody to volunteer to go in there and paint that fan room. And so I volunteered for it. I said, I'll paint it, because I like to paint anyway. And it never bothered me. But there was a lot of fiberglass insulation panels in there, and this that I had to move around. And
Yeah.
anyways, I spent several days painting that writing room. When I got done, though, he gave me passes for Liberty. He gave me 2 or 3 passes for Liberty. And, they were spatial.
Yeah.
And but after 2.5 or close to 3 years, most of the original crew, I went on the ship when it was original, when it was put into commission, and it was first built up in Tacoma, Washington. And after 2.5 years or so, there was only 8 of the original crew still on it. And finally I got transferred off of it. That left about seven men on there from the original crew. So I was one of the oldest ones on there when I left.
Was that the ship you went to Australia on?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we went to Australia, son of Espiritu Santos and all those different islands in the south. You can look at that map and see where they're at. The Gilbert Islands. Then after we took the Gilbert Islands, then we went up and took the Marshall Islands. But the Marshall Islands, the Japanese had left, and we had air crews up there, or CBs up there, putting in airstrips to land planes on, and the Army was in there. And I remember a Sunday morning, the skipper on our ship said that if anybody wants to go to, they're having Catholic sermons over on the, which ship was that? See, I'm forgetting a lot of this.
Yeah.
It's been 80 years, or 75 or 80 years. It was a first line aircraft carrier. And I went to church on a Sunday morning on it. And a bunch of the guys that were Catholics, you know.
Yeah.
And we went to church over there. It was, sometimes it comes to me and sometimes I can't think of what it is. I can't remember the name of it. They talked about it at Pearl Harbor yesterday. They had all them Pearl Harbor shows on, and they talked about this ship. I forgot now what it was.
I'm trying to think of. Only names I can think of right now are Enterprise and Yorktown.
Well, they had the Ranger, Yorktown.
I can't think of any more names.
The one that went down at Macon was Liscombe Bay. I think it was Liscombe Bay. It was an aircraft carrier.
I've heard of that one.
Huh?
I've heard of that one.
Liscombe Bay.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And
When they try to send you to Japan.
huh?
So didn't they try to send you to Japan when you were almost out?
Oh, they still had to go up through they still had to take some of them other islands, and they had some pretty good battles on them.
Alright, that's probably, thanks. What year did you leave the Pacific? Didn't you go to Florida?
I think I got a 30-day leave and came home for 30 days, then went back to San Francisco, reported in Treasure Island, I think it was, in San Francisco. Then an officer come out and said that any of you guys that are electricians, we need some electricians on a cruiser, a heavy cruiser, out at the base. What the hell was that name of that base? I can't think of it right now. But anyway, there was about 30 of us electricians in there that had come back from leave. And so we went to work on that heavy cruiser, and their wiring is all heavy cable. It's all wrapped in wire, and it's hard to work with.
Yeah.
And you didn't get a whole lot done in a day's time. If you was working on the control panel and bringing these wires in, and everything had to be just right. And so it was a slow job. And anyway, we got Navy pay and we got shipyard pay for electrician. But I was only there about a month. And then they shipped me down to Galveston, Texas, I think. And put me on a YW that was going to Japan.
Yeah.
That was just before I got discharged, before the war ended. The war ended while I still had a little time to go in the Navy. I think it ended in 1940, latter part of 1945.
Yeah.
And in 1946 in January, I got turned 21. My 4 years was up. Well, about the 10th of January, they put me on this YW, and had it's yard water is what it was, and it was going to Japan, and when I heard that it was going to Japan, I went over and talked to the base commander, and I said, hey, I've only got so many days left in the Navy, and I said, I'm not going to be on that YW. It'll take a month to get there. It didn't go very fast. It only got about 8 knots an hour, and so he kind of grinned and he said, I'll see what I can do. And so he took me off of that morning, off of that YW, and that afternoon I was put on another YW, going to Cuba, Guantanamo Bay. And I went back in to see him, and he said, well, it'll only take a couple of days to go down to Guantanamo Bay. And he said, and my discharge time, I was supposed to get out on the 20th of January, and it was about the 14th or 15th then. And I told him, I said, I only got 5 days to go in this man's Navy. And I said, I'm kind of anxious to get out. And after 4 years. And so he said, well, you take it down there. They need an electrician on there. And they want to put one electrician on, and a captain was a chief petty officer. And they had a signalman and a mechanic. There was only 6 of us aboard it. And he said, you take it down there and I'll have on your orders to fly you back to Florida, to Miami. And then I'd be going by train up to Great Lakes Navy Base up in Wisconsin, the Navy base there. That's where I entered, and then I'd get discharged from there. So he says, I'll put on your orders to fly you back to the States. And I said, okay. So it was only 6 of us aboard, but boy, we ate good and everything. They had a cook on there and a commissary, and he'd go over and buy steaks for us. He had a budget he could. We ate good. I was only on there. Well, when we got to Guantanamo Bay, I was on that for about a week on that boat. I didn't get discharged about the 28th. I got discharged 28th of January. So I was 8 days late getting out.
Yeah. Why'd you pick to go in the Why'd you pick to go in the Navy?
Why?
Yeah, of all the different things, because you.
Well, I just thought I'd like the Navy better. You moved around. They moved you around a lot. You go from one base to another, one ship to another. You got sailed around the world. Of course, when I went in, the Navy was having more trouble than any other branch.
Yeah.
And only about a third of the Marines ever actually get any active duty. Only about a third of most of them are SPs in your base, at your different bases all around the country. And but the Navy had that uniform, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an experience. I was lucky. Roland, my brother Roland, was in the Army over in Europe. He was lucky he lived through it.
Did you know what Army group he was in, or what the?
No. He never talked much about it, and I never said much about the Navy.
I remember one time he was here, he was saying something about German snipers.
Huh?
So I remember one time he was here, it wasn't the last time, but it was like a time before that or something, he was saying something about German snipers.
Oh.
He said something about like walking through the woods and having to dive to the ground or something like that.
Sure. You never know when you're going to get it.
Yeah.
When you're in service. I had buddies with their legs off. We brought back from Tarawa after 4 days of fighting, day and night. They loaded casualties up on our aircraft carrier on hangar deck. They put what planes we had left up on the flight deck. And on the hangar deck down here, they had bunks. They put bunks all over. And these guys that was wounded, arms off, legs off, blinded, young kids, my age, a lot of them, we put them up there on the hangar deck. And of course there was doctors to work on them, you know.
Yeah.
And we took them back to Pearl Harbor and unloaded them took them to the hospital there at Pearl Harbor. But I'd go up and talk to talked to different ones, guys, you know.
Yeah.
But we didn't have anything to do really after the battle. If everything was running smooth on the ship, the captain let us go up and visit with them, talk with them, the casualties.
Do you remember who the captain was?
No, he's like a god. He's like a god on a ship. He's like the president of the United States.
Yeah. Alright, I think that's probably...
People, guys. A few times I had a little trouble with personnel. One guy, I was down in Miami, and I had liberty that night, and I was in the barracks, and of course you see all these guys in the barracks with you, you know. And this one guy was kind of a smart aleck, and I had a stripe put on, a 4-year stripe put on my jumper.
Yeah.
Because I only had, when I was there in Miami, I only had a couple of months or so to go in the service. So I had that stripe put on my jumper, which 4-year service.
Mm-hmm.
So I went ashore that night. Wasn't very far from the barracks. Wasn't about, maybe from here to Armstrong's. Right downtown Miami.
Yeah.
So I happened to go in there by myself. And this guy and 2 buddies of his was sitting at a table,
Mm-hmm.
and there was more chairs there at the table. So they was from the barracks, and I thought, well, I'll sit with them, you know, and bullshit with them a little bit. So I sat down, and waitress brought me a beer. We was sitting there, and so this cocky guy, he says, he got smart, and he said, you put that stripe on your jumper, he said, you haven't got 4 years in the service. I said, I will have in a couple of months. And I thought I'd go ahead and have it put on. When I got discharged and wore my uniform home, it would be there. He got kind of smart and cocky with me. And so I seen a fight coming. And so I didn't hesitate. I just upset the table on him and then went after him. And the other 2 was jumping at me,
Yeah.
jumping on me when I'm trying to swing at this one. And I had him down on the floor, and on top of him, and an officer, a naval officer, was in there, standing at the bar, and he come over and got a hold of me, and he says, hey, he says, sailor, he says, get out of here, get out the back door. The MPs is coming in the front door up there. Well, it was a long bar.
Yeah.
The bar was about as long as from here to the little house. It was about that long. So he pulled me off of that guy, and told me to get out the back, slip out the back door. And so anyway, I caught the guy the next day in the barracks. And told him, I said, you want to finish that now, that fight? No, he said, I don't want to fight you. But I just defending myself.
Yeah.
I know there are women like my best friends.
I gotta go pee.
who